Welcome to Protagonist Pub. This is Felicity, and this is another reading vlog. This time, I'm sorry, I'm on the sofa. All three dogs are here, and Felicity's feeling left out, so she's going to be in the video for a little bit. This was not a planned vlog. This is a result of starting a highly popular book I got at the library over the weekend, and, well, I need to film some reactions to it and talk about it so y'all don't have to read it. So first I thought I'd go over my general haul from library on Friday, and then we're going to talk about the two books in this video because I think they're going to be a very good compare and contrast. Hello, sweetheart. I know you don't go into vlogs often, huh? No, your mama's very sweet girl. Yeah, so it is the last Monday in July, and we are having what can best be described as fall weather in Texas. We haven't seen triple digits in over a week. There we go. It is wet, more humid than rainy, although there are periods of intense rain and thunder, and then it's just humid. And it is, last week was mostly in the 80s. It is, I checked the forecast today, and forecast is all the way out through my birthday, and there is not a triple digit in that long-term forecast. I do not know what's going on, but I'm scared. Huh. So, Felicity does not like laying in wet grass, and thus we get to cuddly Felicity this morning. Right? Cuddly Felicity? Yeah, okay. Okay, so what did I pick up wandering the shelves? Well, I literally wandered the shelves really quickly, and I came across something that sounds fascinating to me. That is Sins of the Father, a medieval mystery by C.B. Hanley. This is the first book in the series. My library only has books 1 and 2. The rest, if it is good, I will have to purchase electronically or in paperback format. It's not very long. It's just under 250 pages. And 254 pages. Nope. Sorry. Those are the historical notes. It's 248 pages for the story itself. Completely coincidentally, I picked this up because it looked interesting. It's a period history I like. And the author this is her pen name. Under her name, which is Catherine Hanley, she has a series of non-fiction books of medieval history that have been on my list of, hey, I'm very interested in that. I really want to read one of those. So, good introduction to a writing style for me. I am thrilled. I am looking forward to that one. It fits Mood Read August perfectly. I'm good. So I walked by the new shelf, which, my library conveniently puts right in front of my view as I walk in the door. I'll take some pictures or some video next time I go to the library, which will probably be today since I have books on hold. That is Murder in Rose Hill by Victoria Thompson. Trying to get a good view. And this is a gaslight mystery. These are usually not usually. They are set in San Francisco, unless I am mistaken. But I recall these being set in San Francisco. And this is a very long-running series. This is probably the high 20s, if not in the 30s in this series. I am not up to date. I'm not worried about reading out of order in this series. The library does not have them all. If I get to it, great. If I don't get to it, it's okay. I can pick it up later. But I will read you a little bit of the flap. Midwife Sarah Malloy and her private detective husband Frank discover that the cure is worse than the disease when they investigate the death of a promising young woman in this atmospheric, riveting mystery. I have enjoyed these in the past. If I get a chance to dive into this, I'm going to be happy about that. So we shall see. And then, unsurprisingly, I picked up 2 Nancy Thayer books. These are her 2022 and 2023 releases. So I am hopeful that they are more like her 2024 release than her early 2000s release, which you will understand more when the Library Reading Challenge vlog comes out. That will be later in August. So the first one is Family Reunion, and the 2023 release is All the Days of Summer. And I love the covers as always. They both take place on Nantucket. And they're just good escapist fiction. Family Reunion is under 300 pages. And All the Days of Summer is 330 pages. So it's not a huge time investment. And they're just good beach reads. And for me, they will be, especially if I get some of the thicker books sitting on my shelves read this month. We shall see. They're good palate cleansers. So, I am interested greatly. Okay, so all 3 dogs are currently looking out the window, trying to anticipate the appearance of the cat next door so they can have another conversation. It's Monday. So, now to talk about the 2 novels that are going to be the bulk of this vlog. We're going to talk about the one I anticipate being a good one first. I have this as a NetGalley arc. I didn't read it as an arc. It came in at my library, so I got it that way. But this will still be my fair and honest review, like always. Hello, Kahlua. And that is How to Age Disgracefully by Clare Pooley. And I will read you the inside flap. Whoa, good girl. When age makes you invisible, secrets are easier to hide. Daphne knows that age is just a number. She also knows that society no longer pays her any attention, something she's happy to exploit to help her hide a somewhat checkered past. Finding herself alone on her 70th birthday, she decides she needs some friends. Still, the prospect of joining a senior citizen social club horrifies her. She's not made to endure genteel games of cards and the like, but other members of the social club are not what she was expecting. There's Art, a failed actor turned kleptomaniac, and Ruby, a Banksy-style knitter who takes her revenge in public yearning. And there's Lydia, who took the job running the social club thinking it would just be something to do now her children are grown, and who finds her hands quite a bit fuller than anticipated. After an accident in which half the building collapses, the local council threatens to close the club. But they have underestimated the wrong group of senior citizens. And with the help of the toddlers next door, a teenage dad, and a geriatric orphan dog, this unorthodox gang sets out to prove it. As long as their past don't catch up with them first. It sounds incredibly engaging. I have read the prologue and the first chapter, and oh my invested. It is an engaging writing style. The characters are relatable from the get-go, as Chloe insists on cleaning herself on the sofa. And it is everything I was hoping it was going to be. And then there's the Every Time I Go on Vacation, Someone Dies by Catherine Mack. I will read you the inside flap. 10 days, 8 suspects, 6 crimes, 5 authors, 3 bodies, 1 trip to die for. All that best-selling author Eleanor Dash wants is to get through her book tour in Italy. Kahlua. Stop. Kill off her main character, Connor Smith, in the next novel in her vacation mystery series. Is that too much to ask? Clearly it is, because when an attempt is made to kill the real Connor, the handsome but infuriating con man she got mixed up with 10 years ago and now can't get out of her life, Eleanor is enlisted to help solve the case. Contending with literary competitors, rabid fans, a stalker, and even her ex, Oliver, who turns up unexpectedly, theories are bandied about, and rivalries, rifts, and broken hearts are revealed. But who's really trying to get away with murder? Sounds great, right? Sounds like something I would absolutely love to read and fall in love with. It's 340 pages. It has incredibly, you can't see both sides of this, but it has incredibly engaging end papers that are different on both sides. Same context, but different pages. And, it has a great beach read cover, the whole 9 yards. This should be a book in my wheelhouse. Right? We're all on the same page. Well, that is quickly not the case. So the book opens up in Rome. First 2 lines of the book, 3 lines. Let's do the first 3 lines of the book. Bless me, Father, for I have sinned. I want to commit a homicide. Why, you ask? Bear with me for a second, and I'll explain. Okay, so if you're Catholic, you understand the first line. You know immediately where she is. It doesn't tell you in the setting, but it's immediately obvious if you're Catholic where she is. So she goes on to explain there are footnotes throughout, and I am on chapter 2, and I am so angry about this book. I'm vlogging it, and I am only reading it to put it in this vlog so that you don't make the same mistake. And I'm trying to contrast it with the Clare Pooley book, because there are so many things wrong with this book. There's so many things wrong with this book, and I am through 2 chapters. And for comparison, this one, I've read the prologue and the opening chapter of Daphne, and each chapter is a different point of view of a particular character. And the chapters aren't long, and they're great. So the prologue happens, and then the story starts, and the story goes back 3 months earlier. And we open up, and Daphne is alone in her apartment, and she is celebrating her 70th birthday. She realizes that she has become somewhat of a recluse since her husband died, and she retired, and now she doesn't, go out and see people and do things, and she is determined to change that. She's not quite sure how, but she is going to change that. So she is on a campaign to make some friends. There is nothing objectionable in this story. It is actually humorous so far. and relatable, and I am enjoying it immensely. The next chapter is art. I haven't read it yet, but I'm going to hold a soft spot in my heart for art because that is my dad's name. And I always hold a soft spot when his name appears in a book. Same with my mom when her name appears, which is far less. Neither of my parents' names appears very often. So we shall see. Okay, so I don't know what is going on, but when did it become okay to normalize anti-Catholic bigotry in fiction? Because that's what this book starts out as. And through 2 chapters, there is so much of it that literally I wanted to punch a wall, and I don't react like that. I don't. So as the book opens up, she is in Rome, she's in a Catholic church, and she's in a confessional. And she is, quote unquote, confessing why she wants to commit murder. And so she goes on to explain it, and the text is very clearly her explaining to the priest, Kalua, why she wants to commit murder. So it tells a little bit of backstory, and all that would have been fine, except it is loaded with language and anti-Catholic sentiment, and it is abominable. So she's in the confessional, and the priest is talking to her, and she gets upset because she's in Rome and she ends up with an American priest in Rome. She's actually mad that she gets an American priest in Rome instead of an Italian priest. Okay. And she's swearing to herself and out loud in the confessional. I cannot fathom. I am sure it occurs. I am not so naive that I don't think it occurs. I'm not so naive that I think priests don't swear or that they've never heard a cuss word in their lives. I know that's not the case. But seriously, why is it in a book? Why are we normalizing this? So she, halfway through her confession, she steps out of the confessional. She just doesn't even excuse herself. She just steps out of the confessional to talk to her sister, and she goes, "Are we Catholic?" Her sister's like, "I don't know." What? I'm sorry, how do you not know what you are? And if you aren't Catholic, would you necessarily know what a confessional was in a church? So she's stepped out of the confessional, and she's talking to her sister, and remind you, they're in church. So she's in church. She then, in a footnote, objects to the penance given to her and saying it wasn't right, and she's at this point in the text, I am so irritated that I set it aside for a while. I tried to figure out what I'm going to do, and they're like, you know what? I'm going to read this and vlog it because there's so much in here that is objectionable. And she says the F word in the middle of church. Admittedly, mass isn't going on, but she's in the middle of church and she says the F word. And my brain imploded. I do not see the point. I do not see what it, it is so disrespectful. It is so disrespectful. She says she takes the Lord's name in vain in church. I do not understand when this became normalized in fiction. I do not understand why it's okay. There are certain things that, whether or not you are a believer, whether or not you are Catholic or any other faith, you just, common decency. Why is it so hard? And why is it okay to just be so hateful? So, I could have probably overlooked the language, but I cannot overlook the anti-Catholic bigotry. I cannot. So, I'm going to read it. I'm going to point it out every time it comes up. I'm going to stop just short of keeping a tally sheet unless it becomes really, really bad. But it's here, and I don't expect it to abate. If that is your opening chapter and your introduction, then there's some kind of axe to grind. And why bother to write it? Are you that angry of a person? Okay. So I'm going to continue reading and we shall see if it gets better. I'm not anticipating that. Just so we're clear, I'm not anticipating that. Okay. Update time. I'm approximately 50 pages into each, and I have thoughts. So, let's do the quote-unquote good book first. I'm thoroughly delighted. We have an amazing cast of characters. We have a young teenage father. We have a newly empty nester mother who is leading the senior citizen group. And then we have the seniors themselves. And they are a wide variety of seniors. And I am very, very enthralled. It is funny. It is reflective. It's great. I love their differing perspectives. I love the fact that the main focus of the book is the characters in their 70s. with their varied paths and their varying interests and their vastly different life experiences. And I should have flagged it, but I didn't bring any flags upstairs. Let me see if I can find it, and I'll come right back. Okay, so I found the two passages my brain remembers. So the first one comes fairly early on in this book, and it's one of the male senior citizens. His name is Art. Shocking. And he is a former actor who is obviously at age 70 aging out of work. So I'm going to read you a little bit. Yet again, Art cursed his agent, along with the whole film and TV industry. How come when 1/4 of the UK population was over 60, they made up such a teeny tiny percentage of available roles? The producers, directors, and writers seemed determined to airbrush wrinkles from their glossy make-believe world, unless they were vital to forward a plot point, illustrate a backstory, or provide a minor two-dimensional villain. That is very true, and it's not limited to television. How often do seniors not appear in books? Just think about it. Most of the books written are, geared for the 20-somethings. And it's slowly starting to change, but still, it's very odd to even have a main character who is, let's say, in their 50s, let alone one that's in their 70s. So, next passage comes from Daphne, who is one of the first senior citizen you meet. And she says, the first hour of the Senior Citizen Social Club had been every bit as dire as Daphne had been expecting. More so, even. Why was it that people assumed you could throw a total group of strangers together and, just because they were approximately the same age, they'd get along? It might work with 5-year-olds, but not with septuagenarians who had accumulated vastly different life experiences, bad habits, and entrenched opinions. It had been clear to Daphne within minutes that she had nothing in common with any of her fellow quote-unquote club members. And thank the Lord for that, frankly. And that is a very good point. We put toddlers in preschool and daycare and lump them all together, and that's fine. They have very little life experience that's unique to them, and they learn things together. And then we have, in recent years, started senior citizen daycare facilities, and we lump seniors together like we do toddlers. But seniors have lived and have seen things and have done things. So why do we just assume that because they're inconvenient to their children and grandchildren, that if we drop them off in a senior citizen daycare, sorry, the bird is very happy. He has a paper towel roll. Okay, we see you. That they're going to all get along. We don't ask them. We drop them off and go about our lives and pick them back up and take them home. So I am very interested in continuing that one. Okay, let's talk about the problem book. I'm roughly the same percentage in. And I know that I talked about the anti-Catholic bigotry in the first book. And I want to give you an example. where is it? She is in church. She is complaining about the penance she has received from her, unfortunately, American priest in Rome. And this passage actually takes place in chapter 2. And there are a lot of footnote commentaries. That is where this appears. Those footnotes completely just, they don't have to be read according to the author herself in yet a footnote, but they're like headcanon for the main character. So I will read you the footnote and then explain the bigotry here. So she is talking about her penance from the priest, and she is upset that it was so little. The footnote reads, I had to look this one up. He was supposed to tell me to say the rosary, which means saying Our Father on the first bead, and then Hail Mary on the next 3 beads, and then something called the mystery, which goes on for 5, and this is underscored, decades. No, thank you. I can wrap up a mystery way faster than that. Okay, so let's clear a couple of things up here. First, there is no set penance that a priest is supposed to give you for any particular list of sins. It's not like they go down a spreadsheet and check off all the sins you've confessed, and then Okay, Pickles is now out back. Chickens have been let out. Eggs have been collected and put away. So it'll be a little quieter in here until the trash man shows up here shortly. But until then, back to what I was saying. So there isn't a checklist of what you can expect as penance when you go to confession. Is it somewhat predictable if you're a lifelong Catholic? Of course, because being human, you tend to, unfortunately, repeat the same sins. And you are a member of a parish, and you have a regular confessor. And it is predictable. But in this case, she doesn't know if she's Catholic. She's in Rome. And yet somehow she should have been assigned this. And her description of the rosary is incorrect. And the mysteries of the rosary are not a race to a finish line. Yes, they're called decades because the 5 strands of 10 beads with 1 bead between each section of 10 is called a decade because there are 10 beads. And what are 10 in Latin? A decade. There is so much wrong with this statement, let alone her behavior in church, her swearing in church. How does a civilized, normal, commonly decent human being walk into a place of worship, whether or not you are a member of that faith, or any faith? It's trash day. And while I'm sitting here trying to read, they are keeping a close eye out for the trash man. Because, he's coming to steal their trash. Oh my. They do this every Tuesday morning. And every Tuesday morning they wait, allegedly patiently, until the trash man arrives to steal their trash. And boy, do they let the trash man know that he's stealing their trash. Klua is by far the quietest, by the way. She rarely barks at them. Oh, baby girl. Okay, now that Fireball has given the nice trash man what for stealing her trash, And the other two are hanging their heads over the back of the sofa, staring out the window. Quiet has descended once again. So, I do not understand how anyone walks into a church, a synagogue, a Buddhist temple. I don't... This is a non-denominational statement. I do not understand how one walks into a place of worship and is disrespectful in that holy place. You do not have to be a person of faith. You do not have to be a person of the particular denomination of faith to be respectful in a house of worship. And it's becoming more and more frequent in society at large, in books, in movies. And it is something that needs to be counteracted, in my opinion. And this book is just a plethora of disrespect. So I am roughly on page 50 in this book. It's the language has tapered off a little bit, and by a little bit I mean it may be a swear word every other page instead of every page. But it isn't poorly written. This could have been a much more enjoyable story without the language, because the writing isn't bad. It's the choice of verbiage that's the problem. And there's also some setup issues. So our main character is the author of the mystery series, and she is trying to figure out how to kill off the protagonist in her book series she doesn't like. And unfortunately, she based it on a real person and used the same name, and now he's getting 20% of all of her books because, well, you know, she did that. And they have what can at best be described as an acrimonious relationship, even though at one point in their actual life they were in a relationship 10 years ago. And she used that relationship to write her first book. So they have this acrimonious relationship, and yet he's on the book tour with her, meeting fans. He is more popular with her fans than she is. Her sister is also her personal assistant, and the protagonist's name is Eleanor, and her sister's name is Harper. Eleanor feels guilty because she has the career that Harper always wanted, and Harper is being very well paid to be her sister's assistant and, you know, handle her life. And her manuscript that she wrote and Eleanor gave to her publicist, her agent, wasn't picked up because apparently Harper can't write. So she feels guilty that she has become a multi-millionaire based on a series of books she has written. And it's like, really? At what point do you realize that dreams change and you are allowed to be a writer too, and this whole guilt trip thing you have going on is just bonkers? And she's on tour with a bunch of fans that, you know, won the trip to Italy with her to help her plan her next book. And one of them is her stalker. She actually has a restraining order in the States against this woman. And yet somehow she wins a spot to go on the tour. Things just aren't adding up, and it's frustrating because the bones of a good story are here. Bones of a story I would be completely enjoying, but some of it is just infuriating, and why? And if it wasn't for this vlog, even without the religious bigotry, I would be DNFing in this by now because I'm frustrated. So I'm going to continue reading, and hopefully it gets better. I am going to try and finish the Every Time I Go on Vacation today. I have a couple of new books waiting for me at the library, and if I could get this one out of my house when I pick those up later this week, I would be all for that. So I'm going to go read. I'll be back. Well, I'm back with an update sooner than I thought. I'm on page 68. I'm in the middle of a chapter. And we have come up to footnote number 50. And I had to take a sneak peek. So there are 338 pages in this masterpiece. And there are 236 footnotes. Enough said on that. I'm going to read you footnote number 50. And if I wasn't already hate reading this book, the footnote I'm about to read you would have caused me to DNF the book, because just absolutely no. Here's the footnote. She's talking about authors reading their reviews in the text of the novel itself. So, footnote 50. Never do this. In fact, never tag an author in any review less than 4 stars out of 5. You're entitled to your opinion, of course. We just don't want to hear that you think our book sucked, or that they were meh. That one's the worst. I'm sorry. You're an author. I'm going to tag you in my review if I see fit. And if you can't handle the reviews and your skin is so thin that someone else's opinion on what you published, you can't handle, that isn't my issue. That's your issue. I will absolutely tag authors in my reviews. I have always tagged authors in my reviews, and I will always continue to do so. This entire nonsense of only give 4-star reviews, don't tag authors if it's negative, don't tell authors it's meh, or they need to work on something, is nonsense. And readers who leave reviews like that are doing a disservice to not only the author themselves so that they can improve their craft in the next book, but to readers who might go pick up that new to them author and have the book just be a complete, amazing, wonderful time, or a incredibly poorly written book that should not have seen the light of day. So, no, Catherine Mack, you are not entitled to not be tagged in reviews by readers. That is a prerogative of a reader, and you should either grow thick skin or never read reviews. We are on page 104. And they just think someone in the cast of characters has been murdered. Turns out he was faking it. And there's been a lot of screaming and swearing. And this is the footnote the author chooses to leave about swearing. I mean, I would print... Here, I'll read to the line. Everyone starts speaking at once. A cacophony of what the hells and you must be jokings and some words that aren't fit to print. Footnote. I mean, I would print them if it were up to me. But there's a segment of the reading public that gives 1-star reviews for language. Though I probably sailed past that barrier when I took the Lord's name in vain in the first chapter. Oh well. So she's basically giving the entire reading public double one-finger salutes because they give 1-star reviews for language. And yet, 20 odd pages back, she was complaining about not getting 4-star reviews and being tagged in them. Well, maybe, clean up your language and not take the Lord's name in vain, and don't put a swear word or two on every single page, Catherine Mack. And another thing while we're on irritating things in this book, the author of this book, one Miss Catherine Mack, seems to think that the only way to be an author is to be a traditionally published one. So if you're an indie published author, I'm sorry, according to Catherine Mack, all of your hard work, effort, sales, rabid followings, etc., are meaningless. And you should go back into your hovel because you don't fit in the traditionally published world. I don't believe that. It's a load of garbage. And, I don't know how Catherine Mack got a publishing contract. I do not know what set her apart because it certainly wasn't this book. Oh my gosh. Oh, Catherine Mack isn't a debut novel, by the way. This is her debut novel under this pen name. Doesn't tell me what her actual name is, but according to the blurb on the back, she's the best-selling author of more than a dozen novels. Television rights to Every Time I Go on Vacation, Someone Dies, and its sequel sold in a major auction to Fox TV for development into a series. Yeah. I won't be watching that utter piece of garbage. The arrogance of this author is astounding. It is astounding. And by the way, she has pronouns in her author blurb, so that tells you everything you need to know. So Eleanor is the older sister, and Harper is the younger sister who works for Eleanor. And Harper is 32 years old, and she has not gotten over the fact that she works for her big sister and that she has always dreamed of being a writer, and her dreams aren't coming true, and she's holding it against her sister. Now, admittedly, I don't have a sister. I have never had a sister. I have a brother. We don't have the best relationship, but I love him without question. And if, my dream he somehow succeeded in life, I may have been I may have been jealous for a while, but I wouldn't hold it against him for 10 years like Harper has done to Eleanor. And that is just petty and immature. And if you're that unhappy working for your big sister and, being paid handsomely to do so, then maybe you should stop and grow up. I just find it incredibly, incredibly irritating and petty. Irritating and petty. Just, ugh. So, Eleanor is talking to the ex-wife of Connor, who is her former boyfriend and also the protagonist of her mystery series. And unbeknownst to Eleanor, she cheated with Connor behind Allison's back, and Allison has now written a tell all about it. So, backstory anyway. So, Eleanor's first book is titled When in Rome. And this is the tagline on the book, and she's very proud of it. The scandalous divorce behind the bestseller. So you have an entire career off of being a homewrecker. Congratulations, you're even less of a nice person than I already thought. It just, oh my gosh, you are just a horrible human being and a bad character. Just bad. Okay, I am a little over halfway through, and the unmitigated gall and arrogance of this author is astounding. She has no respect, none, for anything other than a traditionally published author. If you're a traditionally published author and you sell 10,000 copies or less of your book, she considers you a failure. And then we get to the utter just arrogance of this author. In the text of this fictional garbage, she's talking about the television series for the fictionalized book, but she's really referencing the fact that she's already sold this newly published book, which probably the rights to which were purchased before release, to, I believe it's Netflix? No, it's Fox. To be turned into a series. Really? So not only do you not respect anyone who sells less than 10,000 books that are traditionally published, and all of the wonderful indie authors that exist, and all of the fledgling authors out there, but you get to, gloat about the fact that you've sold rights to this to Fox before it's even released in the text of the actual story itself. Seriously, I cannot tell you how much I despise this book. If you even take out all of her anti-Catholic, and if you even remove the vast amounts of swearing, this would still be a book I would want to fling violently across the room. Just So it is just after 4 at the time I'm filming this particular clip. Dave is probably on his way home here shortly. I may not film another clip until tomorrow morning, but I will finish this book before I go to bed, or very early tomorrow morning when I get up, because I can't allow this one to fester. It is vile. It is just vile. Just the lack of empathy, the arrogance, the elitism, the snobbery of this author is off-putting. She even at one point hang on. So my pulled pork is in the oven finishing itself off. Dave is on his way home. I'm gonna read till he gets home. we're going to have dinner, going to relax a little bit, and then I'm going to finish this book. And I will see you guys back here tomorrow morning to finish it up and then move on to the utter delight that is going to be How to Age Disgracefully, especially in comparison to this book. I mean, that book could be, pretty awful. It isn't so far, by the way. And it would still be better than this pile of excrement. I hope whatever you're reading while you watch this vlog is better than this. Oh, come on. Bixby, stop recording. Bixby, stop. Okay, so it is Wednesday morning, and I did finish the book last night, so I'm going to talk about that last 100 or so pages. Let's just say that after I finished the book last night, I had to take a shower to wash away the residue the book left. I don't know another way to put it that works. I don't know another way to put it. So, when I last talked to you, I was on, I think, page 214. And it's 216, I guess. The last third of the book is as big a disaster, if not more so, than the first 2/3 of the book. Swearing intensifies. There is an absolute breaking of the fourth wall. The gloating from the author is out of control. And then we get to the actual reveal of the mystery, in which, because she's such a poor author, she ends up telling and not showing, and she spent all this time building up it being, one of the authors on the book tour, and that turns out not to be the case. I don't know why she even bothered to include the fans in the book tour, because they absolutely played no part in the resolution of the story, except, the crazy Kathy character, who really played no part, but she was just a little red herring. And if you took said red herring and the rest of the book club, the book fans, out of the entire book, they would not have been missed. So they were there as a page filler, a very poor red herring, and as commoners, in contrast to the elites of the author and their 5-star experience through Italy. The arrogance of this author, I lack the vocabulary to adequately describe. She has nothing but disdain for readers. She does nothing but gloat in her own cesspool of fame and, publishing sales, and more than once informs said readers that she's already sold the rights to this series to television, and this is how the characters will behave in TV. I'm like, what? I don't care. I'm certainly not going to watch it. I'm certainly not going to tell anybody else to go watch it. The wrap up is ridiculous. The solving of the mystery was poorly handled, expected, and decided to play into stereotypes. The premise of the book was good. Just the general premise of a mystery writer is going to kill off her main character, and that could be a decent mystery. Okay. Execution of said premise was so far below the standard of not even excellence, adequacy, that it is amazing to me that it got published. It is an anti-Catholic book from the get-go. There is swearing in this book that serves no purpose other than it ups word count, and the author enjoys the fact that she can swear and, turn off readers that don't like swearing. And the swearing serves absolutely zero purpose. None. As you know, swearing I can overlook if I'm enjoying the book. It served no purpose. Having 236 footnotes in a book of 334 pages because you thought it was cute and you don't know how to actually write anything. And yeah, it's not like you were, sharing historical details. Rather, you were just, making snide comments, expressing your religious bigotry, demeaning readers. You use those footnotes as weapons. And this was a horrible read. I honestly do not read this book. Just don't. There's nothing redeeming in this book. There is no joy. There is no fun. There is no surprise. It is just a diatribe of foul language, religious hatred, and pettiness. Now, I do need to talk about something. So, the author makes a point of calling out readers who give below a 4-star review, or readers who read books they quote unquote that haven't been published yet. I think that as an author, you can choose to read your reviews or not. You can choose to only read the glowing, stellar reviews that do nothing but praise your skills and your characters, or you can read all of the reviews and figure out if you're actually reaching your audience. Now, are there reviewers out there who take absolute delight in just, trashing authors and books for the sake of trashing authors and books. Oh, I am certain there are. But that doesn't invalidate low reviews, and it does not mean that authors shouldn't be tagged in quote unquote low reviews. So I've said this before, this isn't going to be a surprise to anyone, but there is no agreed upon and followed guideline for what constitutes a 5-star rating versus a 1-star rating. And since when is a middle of the road 3-star rating considered a bad rating? That whole 5-star review, 1-star review, it's only a 3, I shouldn't read it. Based on what? What qualifies that as a choice for picking a book? Everybody's different. Everybody rates books differently. Every book gets a different reaction from every reader that reads it. And there is no standard. So what is a 5 to me may be a 1 to someone else, and vice versa. And authors who think that they only deserve a 4-star and above, and they should never be tagged in anything below a 4-star rating by the people that pay them royalties when they buy the book, or they flip through Kindle Unlimited, or whatever. No, that's not how this works. Reading and reviewing honestly is vital. If you, as a reviewer, only rate things positively and never give constructive criticism or explain why something is a low rating, then it isn't an honest review, and it isn't trustworthy. Now, I don't review on Goodreads. I will for this book. I absolutely will for this book. Because I find Goodreads to be just a toxic cesspool. But I also DNF books I know that aren't going to work for me. And I DNF a lot because I know myself. I know what works for me. And this whole, I can't DNF because, I might hurt someone's feelings. It's nonsense. If a book doesn't work for you, stop reading it. There are better things to read. There are better uses for your time. And I think authors would appreciate DNFs more than low ratings. But even when you give a low rating, explain why. Too many open door scenes, religious bigotry, swearing, poor use of the English language, telling, not showing in a mystery. There are a plethora of reasons books get low scores. But authors have absolutely no right, publishers have absolutely no right to demand good reviews from readers. They don't. Do not be intimidated. Do not fall for it. It is a ploy to sell more books. And quite honestly, if an author wants to sell more books, write better books. That's how you sell more books. Write better books. It's not complicated. It's really, really not. And for all the indie authors or the quote unquote low selling authors who this author felt free to denigrate in her traditionally published book, You are undoubtedly better authors than this person is. You're undoubtedly probably a better person than this person is. And just the unmitigated gall and arrogance of Catherine Mack is stunning to me. It's painfully stunning. I will not read anything else by her. I am going to figure out who the other name under which she publishes, so that I can be sure to avoid the rest of her catalog. And I certainly won't be reading anything else in this series. She does make a point of, at the conclusion of the book, starting book 2 as book 1 concludes, and mentioning that, oh yeah, by the way, it's already been picked up for the 3rd book in this series. Oh, just ugh. So I heartily do not recommend this book under any conceivable circumstance. Just I cannot. Spare yourself. And if you're somehow tempted, or you think I'm being overly critical or mean, then check it out from your library and save yourself the financial hit this book would cause. Okay, let's move on to a better reading choice. So I got up a little early this morning and I picked up where I left off on How to Age Disgracefully. So I'm now about a third of the way through the book. I'm like at page 105. And this is a much better book than the first half of this vlog is discussing. However, this one is a little, what's the word I'm looking for? Disjointed. I am a third of the way through the book. I will easily finish this today. And it is trying to weave a coherent, interconnected story between strangers. So we have, we have Daphne, who is our 70-year-old birthday girl. We have Art, who is our 70-something actor who is a kleptomaniac. We have William, who is his former paparazzo friend. We have Lydia, who is running the senior center, whose husband is clearly having an affair. She's clearly an empty nester mother who has zero backbone, and her self-esteem is very, very low. And then we have Ziggy, who is our 16-year-old whiz at computer science, father of a young child whose mother wanted nothing to do with the baby, and now Ziggy's raising the baby with his mom in their apartment. So chapters are told from the point of view of Ziggy, Lydia, Art, and Daphne. And none of these people knew each other before the book opened up. And so the first third of the book is setting up, trying to weave the lives of 4 disconnected people together. And it's doing an okay job, but it's also trying to force things to weave the story together. And I don't want to say it's jarring, but you can tell there is no connection between any of these people. And so it's just kind of odd. And they just keep getting thrown together. And it's disconcerting. It's like she had an idea in her head, and by Jove, it was going to work. So it's not a bad book. There is no swearing, or if there is, it's been minimal. But it's not fun either. It's not serious, but it's not fun. None of the characters so far are really likable. Daphne is clearly hiding something from her past. Art is clearly a kleptomaniac, and he's embarrassed by it, but he can't stop it. Lydia is sad and pathetic, and she knows her husband's having an affair. She doesn't want to admit it, and her husband is just a bully. And Ziggy is a 16-year-old who's made all the right decisions about a very wrong choice he made earlier in his life, and he's trying to move forward. He is somewhat likable, but you throw all these characters in the pot, and it's right now it is not a enjoyable brew. It's much like the Thursday Murder Club, which I have DNF'd 4 times now, I think. It is firmly and forever in the DNF pile. Because those relationships in that book never gelled for me, and the relationships here aren't gelling for me either. They're not off-putting, but they're not it's the word I'm looking for. These are just all very different people that if they weren't thrown together in this situation, would have nothing to do with one another, and certainly wouldn't be involved in one another's lives. So maybe something will change in the next 2/3. We shall see. I'm not overly hopeful, but time will tell. So I'm going to go wake up the bird. I'm going to make another cup of coffee, and I am going to go back to reading. I will see you shortly for an update. Oh, my good girl. Yeah. And just like that, a charming but disjointed story goes hurtling off the rails on page 119, which, under normal circumstances, this would be where I DNF the book. And I'll read you a little bit. Let me set up the scene. The seniors from the senior citizen group are helping the daycare kids put on a nativity scene. and they are currently at the casting point with the youngsters. And Janine is the teacher for the daycare. Art is one of our seniors. And any other names mentioned here are little kids. Great, he said. Art, in any case. Now, does anyone want to be the Virgin Mary? A single hand shot up. Mary is a girl's part, Noah, said Janine. Noah was wearing the Elsa costume, which Art had stolen from Tesco, and which now lived in the communal dressing up box. The blue polyester skirt pulled over his crossed legs. He looked crestfallen. I don't see why our production can't be gender neutral, said Art. It's all the rage these days. Did anyone see Glenda Jackson as King Lear? A seminal performance. No, I guess not. Anyhow, the angel Gabriel was male, but is being played by Tallulah. And Kylie's going to be the baby Jesus, since she's the smallest, and technically Jesus was a boy. And a newborn, said Janine. Kylie's way too big. This is a play, dear girl, said Art. It's make-believe. We can be size neutral as well as gender neutral. I'm sure you'll make a fine Virgin Mary, Noah. Noah grinned at him and clapped his plump little hands together, and Art thought that this might be the best day he had had in years. So it's quite clear that nothing is safe. Not even the nativity reenactment for a bunch of wee children, all under the age of 8, is safe from this nonsense. Not a newsflash, I know, but really, you know, I can understand using, the only infant in the daycare to play baby Jesus. Okay, that's fine. The infant, I can see that. That's not such a big deal. What is a big deal is telling a 5-year-old boy who is dressed as a girl in this scene that it's okay for him to be the Virgin Mary. No, it is not. It is not okay to tell a 5-year-old boy that he can be the Virgin Mary. And the angel Gabriel is now going to be a female. Really? Really? Nothing is sacred. Nothing is safe. Everything is mocked. And this is why libraries are invaluable. Because you can always just set aside the bad book, return it to the library, and never have to pick it up again. And you certainly didn't waste your money buying a book filled with trash. Just yeah. They're now putting on the nativity play. And the old codger Art, the kleptomaniac actor, is narrating it. And this is how he opens it up. Welcome to the Mandel Community Center Nativity, said Art. Today we are telling the Christian story of the birth of Jesus. But our nursery and senior citizens group represent people of all faiths and celebrate all their major religions and cultural events. Art paused for a smattering of applause and hears from the council. A group of mainly white, middle-aged men who prided themselves on their inclusivity. So, we have turned the nativity into a non-denominational cultural event, and we've managed to poke fun at middle-aged white men, all in the same paragraph. I mean, I've read more egregious things, but still, this is egregious for Christmas content. It just is. Oh, now, once again, we've inserted politics into the nativity scene, and Art, the ardent communist, is now bashing Margaret Thatcher and all Tories. And this isn't the first time that politics has entered the picture in this vein. I'm sure it won't be the last, but, let's defame a dead person. And yes, I know you can't legally defame the dead. Okay, so I've had lunch, made bulgur salad, it's sitting in the fridge getting cold. It's delicious. And I have now finished the book. So, what did I think? It is an unremarkable, read it and forget it, middle of the road, contemporary fiction book. There's nothing about it that stands out. The last third of the book rushes to the ending with a tension that is not adequately built in the preceding 2/3 of the book. The ending feels rushed and forced, which, given the actual ending, I understand why that occurs, but it isn't a satisfying read. Overall, all of the characters lack a depth and a backstory that makes them either relatable or believable. And too much is left unsaid. So the first 2/3 of the book, you have these interwoven, disconnected stories. And then in the last third of the book, all those interwoven threads are suddenly all meshed into one, and the story wraps up. So it's a perfectly bland, sometimes slightly humorous story about building community. Unfortunately, it is not memorable. It doesn't encourage you to go out and read the other 2 books published by the author. It's just a innocuous filler book, and nothing more, unfortunately. I mean, it was nice that there were senior citizens, and there was a character my age, and there were 18-year-olds and little kids, and there was a nice age range in there, but it wasn't. There were so many characters, even though stories were told from the point of view of 4 main people. There were so many characters that nobody, even the main ones, failed to have a fleshed out backstory. And suddenly you get this info dumping in the last third about backstories and, why things are happening. And you're just like, okay, well, that's nice. It's the last third of the book. I could care less at this point. I may have cared about the characters earlier on if I had known things. It was just unsatisfying. Don't get me wrong. It was much better than the Catherine Mack book I read yesterday. I don't need a shower after this one. I don't feel unclean for having read it. I will return this book to the library today or tomorrow, and my brain will go, oh, it will promptly forget about it. I wouldn't be surprised if I forget to mention it when I do the wrap up on Monday next week. What does that tell you? So it's not a bad book. It's not a memorable book. It's just a, easy to read, unforgettable, secular novel. There's nothing that makes this stand out from anything else. So, that being said, I am going to go edit this video and put it up for viewing tomorrow. And then I'm probably not going to do anything for the rest of the day. So, how's your reading going? Leave a comment down below, like and subscribe. And seriously, on this video in particular, I am looking forward to the commentary. I truly am. So, like and subscribe, and I will see you here next time at the Protagonist Pub.